Welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to look at the results from a shellac test that I did back in the summer of 24. It's now February of 25, and the reason this video is so delayed is because the results were very underwhelming. I expected more of a difference between the colors and all of this testing that I did, so I was debating on even doing a video on this, but if you're like me, you are probably curious, what are the differences between the different colors? So I tested it out for you guys. So to conduct this test, what I did is I went to WellerMart and I bought every single color of shellac that they offer. I then took that shellac and broke it up into a 1 pound cut and a 2 pound cut. I expanded the test even farther and tried some boards with a penetrating oil first and other boards where it was just the shellac on bare wood. Again, expanding even farther, I did this on 3 different species of wood. So essentially every single color was being tested 12 different times. If you want to get technical, there was 15 different times because I had a couple boards where I did layer up to 5 or 7 layers to see if that made a difference, and it didn't. So on that note, on each one of these standard boards, the ones that had the penetrating oil, it was 1 coat of penetrating oil, 3 coats of shellac. On the bare boards, without any penetrating oil, it was just 3 coats of shellac. If you're going to be somebody that's going to build and build and build and build and build layers and layers and layers of shellac, you might notice a color variation there. But if you're like me, I want to do 1 or 2 or 3 coats and be done. So that's what these results were. Now would be a good time to say that it is really tough to capture these differences and show you guys the differences in pictures and video, but I'm doing my best. The first category I want to look at is if you're going to use a penetrating oil versus not a penetrating oil. If you are going to use an oil first, the wood's going to be darker. If you're not going to use an oil first, the wood is going to be lighter. For the next categories, I need to break it down by if you're going to use a penetrating oil or not, because it is different in each one of those categories. So looking at if you are going to use a penetrating oil and the 1 pound cut versus the 2 pound cut. I did notice a difference there where the 2 pound cut was darker and had slightly more of a sheen to it versus the 1 pound cut. The color variation, if you are going to use a penetrating oil, really didn't make a difference. Even looking at the lighter colors versus the darker colors, they were very, very similar. And I think that has to do with the fact that the shellac is just sitting on top and the penetrating oil is really what's determining the color. Now looking at these boards, if you are not going to use a penetrating oil, I did not notice a difference between the 1 pound cut and the 2 pound cut when it came to color. I will say the 2 pound cut again had slightly more of a sheen to it. When it comes to the different colors, the light versus the dark, this is where you're going to see a difference of whether you go with the lighter colors versus the darker colors. Within each color category, whether you are using a penetrating oil or not, there is not a big difference at all. So what I mean by that is like the platina versus the blonde, very similar. The orange versus the garnet, very similar. If you wanted to get kind of technical with it, or if you wanted to get kind of picky with it, I can say that the orange tends to bring out the background of the wood, whereas the ruby and the garnet tend to bring out the grain in the wood. So if you wanted to, I don't know, use a figured piece of wood and have the grain pop out, use the ruby or the garnet. If you have a background piece that's kind of just like structural or whatever, then use the orange if you don't want that to take away from the presentation piece. You know what I mean. So the results of this video are, if you're looking within the lighter color categories, the colors don't make a difference. If you're looking within the darker color categories, the colors really don't make a difference. The biggest difference is, do you want your project to be dark? Do you want it to be light? If you want it to be dark, use a penetrating oil first, go with a darker shellac. If you want it to be light, don't use a penetrating oil first and go with a lighter shellac. So what you can kind of do is just go onto the websites, and if they have a sale on one of the colors in the category that you want, pick that one. Again, this is if you were the average, I guess, maybe typical woodworker that's only doing 2 or 3 coats of the shellac. If you are a woodworker that builds and builds and builds layers of shellac and you have noticed a difference between these colors, please let people know down below and let them know if you're using a penetrating oil first or not, because people might be curious to those results also. Maybe that's something I'll do one day, but again, I don't do projects like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to let us know down below, and have a good day.